In this lab, we shall look at three commonly used HTML elements. We have already worked with two of those. So in earlier labs, we worked with the heading element and the paragraph element. In this lab, we shall look at them in more detail, and also a new element which is used to define lists. Now, since we've already looked at heading elements, I shall leave this step as an exercise for you. But I would like to point out that heading elements range from H1 to H6, where 1 is more important than 2, which is in turn more important than 3, and so on. The more important a heading element, it appears in that much bigger font. Also, I'd like to point out that different browsers have different methods of displaying a heading element, right? So although every browser understands that H1 is more important than H2, but the exact font size or the exact boldness will depend on the browser that you are using. Now, ideally, you would want your web pages to look the same across all browsers, right? So what you would do in that case is you would override the browser default styles with your own, and we shall look at how we can do that later. Now once again, in this step, you shall work with the paragraph tag. As we saw earlier, the paragraph element is treated as a block element, which essentially means that all browsers will add an empty line before and after the paragraph element, right? So you do not have to explicitly specify a line break. But in case you want to insert a line break within a paragraph element, you would have to do that by using the empty line, the empty tag or the line break tag. And we saw a use case of the line break tag earlier as well. So just work with the heading and paragraph tags, experiment, and see what your web page looks like. Finally, we shall look at a very important element in HTML known as the list. There are two types of list. One is the ordered list, which is numerically listed, right? So it will start from 1, 2, 3, 4, just like you have in any kind of word processor, such as Microsoft Word. The second type is the unordered list, which is shown up as bullets by default. So just let me give you an example of how these list elements can be used in HTML. So let us start with an ordered list. So let's close the tag, right? And let's follow it up with an unordered list. What I'm going to do here is add another level of list inside this unordered list. Now you can choose to either insert an unordered list or an ordered list, right? So let me start by inserting an ordered list. So just pay attention to the syntax that I'm using here. So we'll call it nested 1. Let me add another one, call it nested 2. Let me close the ordered list tag. Let me close the li tag, and finally the unordered list tag. Okay, so just save this and let's hit preview. So there you go. Do you see how they appear? So once again, experiment with this. Make sure that you're comfortable with using lists on your page, because once you start designing web pages, you'll find that lists are very, very commonly used.